Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something called kingdom economics. Now that might sound a little complicated, but really it all boils down to a question every single one of us faces. What does God actually want us to do with our money? And as we're about to see, this goes so much deeper than just a list of rules. It really gets to the very heart of who God is and the kind of people he's shaping us to become.
And Jesus, man, he gets straight to the point with this one. This statement lays it all out on the table. It's a fundamental choice that every believer has to make. And notice, the problem isn't money itself. Money isn't automatically evil. The issue is our devotion, right? Our ultimate trust that can only belong to one master. So this whole explainer is really about making sure our hearts, and yeah, our wallets, are lined up with the right one. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into this tale of two masters to really get the why behind it all. Then we'll check out God's alternative system in the kingdom's currency. After that, we'll get super practical with giving what is first. And then we'll land on what might be the most important part of all, a gift from the heart.
All right, section 1. So why is this whole topic of giving such a big deal anyway? Well, it's because giving is literally in God's DNA. It's who he is. You know the famous verse, John 3:16? For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. See? Giving isn't just something God does, it's who he is. And for us, as his kids, it's a family trait we're meant to reflect.
This brings us to a really key biblical word, mammon. Now, it's not just a fancy old-timey word for money. You got to think of it as the personification of wealth. It's that spirit of greed that's always whispering in our ear, demanding our loyalty and promising us security. So giving becomes this incredible act of rebellion. Every single time you generously let go of what you have, you're making a powerful statement. You're saying, Mammon, you have no grip on me. My trust is in God.
And this verse, it just nails the big picture, doesn't it? We're told not to be conformed, not to be squeezed into the world's mold, especially when it comes to money. So when you choose to operate by kingdom principles, by God's economy, it's one of the main ways we are transformed. It literally turns our finances into an act of worship.
Okay, so if we're not supposed to just follow the world's system, what's the alternative? Well, that brings us right to our second section. Let's try to understand the kingdom's currency, God's very own economic system. This slide just lays it out so clearly. The world's economy, it runs on earning, buying, hoarding, possessing. But the kingdom's economy? Wow, it runs on a completely different currency, grace. It's not about what you can earn, it's about what you've been freely given. And you know, when you grasp that, it just changes everything. So here's what it all boils down to. Kingdom economics isn't just a conversation about dollars and cents. Not at all. It's about how we manage everything we've been given, our time, our unique talents, and yeah, our financial treasure. And we direct all of it towards one single goal, pushing forward the kingdom of God right here on earth. And this is where it starts to get really personal and practical. See, giving isn't just one thing. It's really built on 3 pillars. It's about your time, which is the one thing you can never, ever get more of. It's about your talent, those unique skills and abilities God wired into you. And yes, of course, it's also about your treasure, your financial resources. Okay, now we're getting into the nuts and bolts, the foundational ways of giving that we see modeled for us right in the Bible. This is where we shift from the why to the how, and it all starts with this principle of giving God what is first. You know what's fascinating? The history behind this stuff? The very first offering we ever read about from Abel, back in Genesis 4, was an offering of his first fruits, the very first and the very best of his flock. And get this. This principle of giving God the first cut was established way before the tithe was ever mentioned. We don't even see the tithe pop up until Abraham, chapters later in Genesis 14. So let's be clear on what first fruits is. It's the very first portion of any increase you get. The whole idea comes from Proverbs, where it says to honor the Lord with the first fruits of all your increase. It's a real, tangible way to show that God is priority number 1 in your life, before a single bill gets paid, before any money gets spent. Okay, next up, we have the tithe. So while first fruits is about giving the first part, the tithe is about a specific part, 10%. The Bible actually calls this 10th part holy to the Lord. Now, this isn't some kind of heavenly tax or a bill you have to pay. It's an act of worship. It's how we physically acknowledge that God is the one true source of everything we have. And that brings us to our final section, and honestly,
This gets to the very core of it all. Because beyond the specific practices of first fruits and the tithe, there's a type of giving that comes from a totally different place, a heart that's just overflowing with devotion.
This verse right here, this is the heart of what the Bible calls offerings. If you think of the tithe as the foundation, offerings are the overflow. There's no set percentage, no rule here. It's purely about what you decide to give from a place of love and gratitude. Not because you have to, but because you want to.
Jesus himself gave us the most powerful picture of this. He once sat down and just watched people putting their money into the temple treasury, and he saw this huge contrast. You had wealthy people making a show of throwing in large amounts, and then you had this one poor widow who put in 2 tiny little coins, basically nothing in comparison. But then Jesus just flips the whole thing on its head. It's stunning. He says this poor widow actually gave more than all the rich people combined. And you have to ask how. Well, they gave from their surplus, from their leftovers, what was easy to give. But she, out of her deep poverty, gave everything she had. Her tiny gift was an act of total trusting sacrifice.
And this one story just reveals the ultimate truth about giving in God's eyes. It's not about the size of the gift. He's looking at the size of the sacrifice. You know, God doesn't need our money. He doesn't. What he wants, what he's after, is our heart. It's the love, the trust, and the worship behind the gift that means everything to him. So we end with this, a final personal question. Jesus said that wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart is going to be too. So after looking at all this, the choice of masters, the pillars of giving, the posture of our hearts, maybe just take a quiet moment and ask yourself, what is my giving really saying about where my heart is?